Look who's back inhabiting her body. So today we're running through final thoughts on a bunch of the stuff that I have been giving kind of second impressions and preliminary thoughts on recently, mainly the Makeup by Mario foundation and the Isamaya collection, the recent one, Wild Star, but I'm going to have a hard time, I can already tell, not just cutting straight to the chase because we have some recent developments regarding Isamaya Ffrench that we need to discuss. But we're going to be doing comparison swatches that will prove useful in several ways as we go through, and I'm going to give y'all some maybe alternatives to some of the products that I don't love as much. So let's go ahead and jump in. Okay, so I did film this look coming together. I am wearing the Makeup by Mario foundation today. We're gonna start with this and go ahead and get her out of the way because I did start today with the Bobbi Brown Vitamin Enriched Face Base because I just got literally one comment that was like, this is the only primer that I can get that foundation to work with, which I don't know if that's really like a critique or advice. It's kind of both, you know. It's like, okay, a foundation shouldn't only work with one primer, but at the same time it's like, okay, if Milk Hydro Grip makes it feel like a mask, it makes it look like a mask, which is what it did. It made it really like gel onto my face and stay all day. I feel like it wore a ton better. In fact, I will put in that footage here. All right, I've had this makeup on I think like 7 hours, and I just took a nap. I was very careful not to like, you know, rub my face against my pillow. So today's the day that I wore Hydro Grip under my makeup, under my foundation, and it made a huge difference in the way that it feels because it, I mean, kind of reached up and scratched wherever that was, but it made it feel so much more secure. But I feel like it made the tendency to accentuate texture all the more consistent. And I mean, I think it did a little better on my nose than it has before, but like, it just took on a completely different quality where I feel like it was sitting in a layer on top of my skin because the Hydro Grip kind of mixed with it, you know, versus, you know, the foundation just kind of sinking into my skin and doing what it was going to do. So it's like my skin didn't get the chance to kind of soak up all of the moisture and whatnot. But I think that like there's almost no getting away from the tendency for this to not blur, whatever the opposite of blurring is, because it's like it's either going to like dry up and like show texture, you know, in like I guess the thinnest spots, or it's going to like show all of your pores. It's just very interesting. Like, I don't think that it's like a bad looking thing at all. I don't, but it does look very makeup-y. It looks like a mask, and this is one pump. One pump. I was very, very careful to use one pump. This is a very minimal amount of the actual foundation on top of the Hydro Grip. And it was very stable and secure. But I would say that this is, if you have it already and you don't want to return it, I think a gripping primer is the answer to getting it to function and getting it to wear for a long time. But it is not a solution for, like, if you're planning, trying to decide whether to buy it. You know, it's like, don't buy it so that you can get it to look like this. It isn't bad at all. It's way better than wearing it alone, in my opinion, but it's also still just not my favorite look. And that was after quite a long day of wearing. The first wear test that I did that I showed in my like second impressions thoughts video, that was only after like 4 hours. And it was really deteriorating, and it made me have a lot of doubts initially about the performance of the formula in and of itself. You know, I was just like, okay, it's super temperamental. It doesn't want to tolerate powder. She's just needy. She's finicky. She needs a lot of maintenance. And so I did use this today, and I mean, regardless of if that makes this foundation perform well, I don't think that you should need a primer in order to make a foundation work at baseline. And I think that that's been the take home about this all along from all the other creators that I've been watching. After I got my head around my feelings on it, I did want to get input from the people that I trust online, and pretty much, not everybody, but pretty much everybody had the same feelings of like, when it goes on, it gives me such high hopes, but it just deteriorates really quickly and it doesn't really play well with others. It doesn't behave enough like a foundation. So it doesn't want to commit to like a good dry down, a good like long wearing lock on your skin. And so it doesn't want to tolerate powder. It breaks up pretty badly and looks cakey, but also it's not skin tint enough that it like stays entirely movable so that when you put like a cream on top of it, it doesn't disturb it. And so it's kind of trying to do too many things and not really doing any well enough. And I really felt like the perspective that Tom offered in their video, talking about how a makeup artist creating a foundation that is oriented to their kit, right? And the shade range, you know, great. I'm glad that Mario finds that shade range useful, but the formula and the finish from its starting point is so dewy and so hydrating, and honestly, like Tom was just straight up like shining. Like they had no problem with that, but like made no secret of the fact that they were shining. So for like anybody who doesn't have dry skin out there, like you're probably going to end up fighting against a lot of shine. That's a weird choice for a makeup artist to make, putting out their first complexion product like this, to be like, yes, the starting point is all the way at this end of the spectrum of dewy looking. So, you know, I think that my job at the end of the day, I always have to ask myself this. It's like, okay, I have mixed feelings. Does this have the ability to work for someone? My job basically at the end of the day is to tell you, you know, if you got $42 in your hand and you're trying to decide if you need one foundation, I don't want this one to be it. At least not on my advice, because like, I don't want you to get home with it and be like, this is the finickiest thing and I feel like it sells me out halfway through the day. And that's kind of what this does if you don't absolutely treat her like a princess, okay? And I want something that is bulletproof, and it doesn't necessarily need to be, again, a mask of makeup that feels super, super like locked in and looks exactly the same at the end of the day as it does the first moment that I put it on. I like when foundation wears in, but this looks worn out, you know, pretty quickly, like within a few hours, if you don't have like expert level tools in your toolkit to make it like long wearing and behave exactly how you want it to. And I don't want to commit anybody's time to that level of effort just to get their foundation to work. So if you're looking for something that is even less expensive and has a very similar wear to it, that, I mean, a similar appearance, a similar finish. I know that this says that it's natural, but then it also says that it's radiant finish. I'm just like, okay, pick a struggle. The whole like natural finish bin that everything kind of gets thrown into at Sephora, my suspicion, I articulate this a lot, but my suspicion is that it's because people are becoming more afraid of the word dewy because they think that that means that it's wildly inflexible and just basically like Glossier or a highlighter for their face. You know, people are looking for this kind of hybrid satin finish that's a little bit higher performing, right? I think that in order to not feel like they're excluding a bunch of potential customers, especially if they do hope / feel that maybe their formula works on multiple skin types, they're throwing into this bin of natural finish because people are like, oh, okay, so it's gonna look like my skin. This doesn't, I mean, they don't all do that. I think that the Rare Beauty Positive Light Tinted Moisturizer is a little more honest. I will have to double check, but I think that they're a little bit more honest about the finish on this. The beauty of this is that while it does have a dewy appearance to it, it still behaves like a high-performing makeup, and it wears all day, and it wears in a beautiful, hydrating way for people like me who have ultra dry skin. If you're looking for something that does something similar to this, but you have combination skin or even oily skin, I mean, first of all, steer clear of this, but I might recommend the Fenty or the CC Nude Glow or even the iconic London, the blurring skin tint that they just put out. It has a pretty good amount of coverage, and I'm probably forgetting some. I do not, and I apologize. I don't get a lot of opportunity to become an expert in foundations that work for other skin types than mine. That's hard. You know, it's almost like I have to buy something by mistake in order to like be like, oh, this isn't for my skin type, because I'm usually buying things that I hope are gonna work for me, so it's kind of hard. But the fact that I have dry skin and this is still too like molten and prone to breaking up, and my friend Nicolette Panisi over on Instagram, I hope she starts a channel at some point, I digress. She did say that from a formula standpoint, from an ingredient standpoint, it is interesting the choice of this being silicone, water, and oil based, and I feel like it is kind of getting in its own way. It's trying to be too many things at once. It suffers from trying to please too many expectations and not really nailing one specific one down. So that is why I wouldn't recommend this, especially at the price point, and I hope that the alternatives work for y'all. And if you are a viewer on my channel and you know of something that you love that's in your, you know, in your collection or in your repertoire foundation wise that has a similar kind of finish to this, but you know to be like longer wearing and something that's just a ride or die for you, please share that in the comments so that other people can find it, because I'm just not a font of knowledge on like everything in that respect, and I really appreciate y'all's input. And then, you know, it's kind of on a completely other plane of existence, because I don't want to encourage people to splurge on something that's going to like completely put them out, you know? I swear by the Chanel Sublimage Le Temps for my foundation needs, and I feel like it does this but better, you know? And it's something that actually makes it improves my skin over time. I feel like it's the one foundation in my collection that I can wear every single day, and my skin actually benefits from that. And if $130 is like comfortably in your budget and you're looking for one foundation to rule them all, highly recommend it. But if that's a stretch for you, honestly, like, this is so excellent. It's so good. So is the Thrive, the new reformulated Thrive CC cream. That one's actually really good for combo skin. So yeah, I think that those are really good options. But overall, that foundation is unfortunately a pass. It's so unfortunate because I did have really high hopes for it, and it's a phenomenal shade match. It's a really good shade match. So I was just like, ugh, darn it. Like, I really can't get it to work in a long wearing capacity or a more than 4 hours capacity. It degrades so fast. I want to touch briefly on these Rare Beauty highlighters, because I did say, you know, purely from a personal standpoint, that like I have a hard time getting it up for a highlighter. But someone did comment, and I love this so much because it's just so pure. This person said, I still love highlighters because shiny. And I was like, yeah, like, yes, I want to glorify the simplicity of that passion. And if you're looking for shiny, this is really beautiful. And, you know, someone else pointed out that these colors do, maybe not all of them, but at least some of them do exist in Selena's original highlighter formula, which is an absolute metric butt ton of product in the liquid highlighter. And I love that thing. So like, no wonder I like this one. I think it's the same color that I had before in that one. So I probably would prefer that one. But even from someone who is not particularly passionate about highlighter, I think that this is a very good version of a highlighter if you like highlighters because shiny, okay? It nails it down. It's a beautiful highlighter. And, you know, I was watching Hannah like I always do, and she was talking about how, you know, you can put highlighter on under your blush and then you won't end up with that stripe like I have right now, you know, that's just a pure like highlight placement moment, you know, it's a little more subtle. And I find it even easier to do that with her liquid highlighter formula, which I admit I entirely forgot about when these came out. I have a lot of things living in my hard drive. My brain, I mean, this hard drive. So yeah, it's been a long time since we had a firmware update and things get lost. All right, I've put it off long enough. I want to talk about this palette mainly from Isamaya because like the other stuff is fine, but I feel like this is the wild star of the show, and that is this, you know, this palette of, what is it, 12 shades that I had actually kind of a hard time getting this look together today because I was trying to use some of the like more difficult shades, the purple and the blue, and that was what made me spring for this sweater, was because I was like, all right, I just gotta bring it all together. I gotta like complete the vibe, because the shirt I was wearing with it earlier, I was like, it's not working. So before we get into comparison swatches and things like that, I want to discuss something that came to my attention yesterday. I was scrolling through my Instagram and I follow another creator, I believe that it is a mutual, and their handle is han_make_ups. And on their story, they had tagged another creator who was talking about some posts that had come up recently on Isamaya Ffrench's personal, I mean, it's still a business Instagram account, but it's not Isamaya Beauty. There are two. They tagged this other creator who was talking about this and, you know, putting screenshots up, and that creator's handle, her handle is Maytamina. Maytamina is her, May/Tamina, Maytahmi, and I'm really sorry if I'm not, you know, putting the emphasis on the right syllables there, because it's all just kind of one word. But either way, she had posted basically in no uncertain terms, like Isamaya's white savior energy that she's putting out on her Instagram right now it's just bad. It's just bad form. It's super cringy, you know? And I was like, uh-oh. So the original post that she had been referring to was taken down, and I think that she kind of realized it was a little bit cringy, but then she left this other video up that is her and a friend taking a Madonna sanctioned tour in Africa under the header of Madonna's nonprofit. So here, let me pull it up because I don't know all the names of everything. Okay, so it says, been sharing a tent with scorpions, baboon spiders, bats, and lizards for the past couple of weeks. Didn't manage to film any of that as I was too busy screaming. Far too much to post, so here's a vid of some of my time in Malawi. A special thank you to Madonna for such a mind-blowing opening to our trip. Thank you to the kids at #HomeOfHope Orphanage for a beautiful welcome, and Jacaranda School Kids for an amazing day of dancing and music. Last clip sums it up, blah, blah, blah. So I watched this video and it just, oh boy, it just gives you all these like cringy feelings of wrongness, and I was like trying to put words to it, and the word is voluntourism. Madonna, I'm sorry, like I understand maybe from Isamaya's standpoint being a makeup artist who has gained notoriety for being associated, this is not sympathetic. This is just trying to understand the order of operations, right? She's gained notoriety through being associated with people who are absolutely like the quintessence of fame, like someone like Madonna. She's infamous in a lot of ways, and Isamaya could have, if she didn't already know, like if you were really claiming pure ignorance on the voluntourism of what you were about to do, it's a simple Google away. Madonna is pretty shameless in her weird exports and exploits of, you know, her African children that she's adopted and things like that. And voluntourism really is this idea of like a white person, in this case, God, it's exhausting, a British white person. I understand none of us is without guilt in this, but like, I mean, I've been watching The Crown, you know? But it's the idea of like swooping in as this visitor who is here to, their idea is to like shine their light on the less fortunate. But what that does is it kind of I'm not doing a very good job articulating this, but like to me, it ignores the idea that each and every one of those kids that they are interacting with, those adults, anybody, are actual people with lives and aspirations and feelings, and that when you do that in a place that is impoverished, it's such an event. It's such a to-do. And then you basically do it for your own benefit more than theirs. And then you just kind of go through your exoticized struggle of what their life actually is. And you're like, wow, this sucks so much. Scorpions, mud, scary things, big animals, danger, danger. And then you're just like, I guess that's your life. This was fun for me. I'm gonna go home. You know, I'm gonna post about it on social media. That's so, it's very tokenizing, and it really ignores the fact that like those kids are orphans who that is their life, and you are literally just a tourist in it. And maybe that's probably that's having a negative impact on them overall from like a traumatizing abandonment standpoint. You think? And they're like not even gonna really know all of the crap that it's kind of contorting in their brains until later on in life about like thinking of themselves as second-class citizens and thinking of their own potential depending entirely on the kindness of white people. And like just the whole idea of, you know, visiting your charity upon them in this way that's like, I'm going to go suffer on your behalf because I typically live this life of luxury. It's just really gross. I'm a big proponent of know better, do better. You know, I bought from her brand. I've now sunk $500 into Isamaya's brand over 2 releases. And I have to say, okay, I didn't know her before this. I just took her at face value as a, you know, cool, weird, eccentric, like makeup artist without examining the, you know, deep web of ties that she had to other people. Like I didn't, you know what I mean? I just didn't look into that. Probably should have, but know better, do better. And so I think that she suffers from some probably knowing better and not doing better, which is kind of the worst, you know, because she took down the other posts. So she obviously knows better. But I think she's still more interested in staying in the good graces of Madonna, who I literally, like, I'm sorry, until she started popping up with so much plastic surgery, she looked like Kylie Jenner. I kind of forgot she existed, but still, the word Madonna. I mean, it's, you know immediately who you're talking about. You know, I think that pressure outweighs her desire to kind of do the right thing. I don't have all the answers for it, but what I have control over is where I put my next $250, and I have the ability to not buy her next collection. That's very easy for me to do or to not do. So all that to say, I don't want to endorse buying this collection, and I do want to, I was going to offer y'all swatch comparisons for the palettes that I have in my collection anyway, but now I think it's an even more salient thing to do, an even more salient exercise, because these textures can be achieved elsewhere. So let's do some swatching. First up here, we're just gonna square this one away pretty quickly, but like, I was trying to figure, I was like, where have I seen these textures before? Y'all, I know I'm a broken record, but the Kaja Beauty Bento in Orange Blossom it's just a gift to the makeup world. For $26, you can get these 3 gorgeous bouncy shadows, and they really satisfy so many cravings that I find satisfaction in the Isamaya palette from. So I'm gonna space them apart so that I can swatch the Isamaya shades in between them. So here we have this lovely Peach Shift Gold, and then there is the Isamaya one, which is a lot more kind of fractal. It's not as consistent, you know, but it also gives that really interesting foiled effect. And honestly, that is the shade that saves every eye look. When I was struggling through this eye look today, I just pasted this on the top. I was like, I don't know. Just put that on top and like put me out of my misery because I was having a hard time. And then we have this shade right here, this other pink, and it's quite similar. Not exactly the same, but honestly, I'm not sure that I'd be able to tell them apart in a lineup. And then we have my favorite Bedroomized Brown right there in that Kaja palette. And then we have the Bedroomized Brown that's in Isamaya's palette. That was not a very good swatch. There we go. So, you know, as these things go, not identical, but a great alternative for it. And I do find that the Kaja shadows are either as easy to control as like the satins or easier to control than her glitters. Now, I believe it was Queer Bones came into my comments and they said, if you use a rougher brush, like, and pick the glitter up with that, then it doesn't fall out. I don't own any natural bristle brushes, and I'm like not in the mood to buy brushes because I have so gosh darn many. If someone ever sent me some, fine, but just understand from their account, from their standpoint, be advised that it's less likely to fall out if you use a natural bristle brush. Nice tip. See, that's why I like y'all's comments, is because it's very helpful. Okay, next, and this is the one that really came to mind because when you take out these kind of really bright ones or really kind of like intentionally off the wall ones, like that funky translucent purple, then you actually end up with something that, while beautifully textural, is pretty practical from the standpoint of being like skin native colors, right? We're talking pinks and browns mostly. Pinks, browns, and golds. This was the first thing that came to mind, mainly because of this shade right here. So this is the NARS Summer Unrated palette. Can you still get this? Let me see, I'm gonna Google, because Summer Unrated, who knows? It might have been limited edition. Yeah, it's at Kohl's, which probably means it's still at Sephora. I thought it was an Ulta exclusive. Look, if you can find it, get while the getting's good. I will try and link it below if I can find it, but if you already have this palette, you probably have your needs met. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the same deal with the similarities in the swatches. So we have that beautiful, like soft ballerina pink kind of color, which is again, gonna be very similar to that other one from Isamaya, like very, very similar. We have this, you know, apricot shift gold. Don't adjust your televisions. They're very, very similar. And then we have the bedroomized brown. Don't adjust your televisions. They're ridiculously close to each other. And then we have a couple of mattes that, while they're not identical, we're pretty close, and there are so many dimensions of like cool and warm and neutral mattes in this palette that, I mean, you can get there and further with this one. The only thing that it doesn't have is that bright cream color, but like, it's a nice to have for me, but I can also use my face powder for that. And anybody trying to achieve what I call like a, you know, get you out of trouble color, you can lean on whatever your skin tone is in your powder to get you out of trouble. You know what I mean? So just kind of like brush off what's there and bring you back to start, essentially. So the only reason that a white is super useful for me is because that's the color of my skin. So, you know, it doesn't necessarily need to exist in a palette like this for this palette to be useful. So, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5 shades of 12 that can easily be achieved with this. And I would say that that is like very, very much duping the vibes, especially because this is like $52. I think it's on sale right now for like under that, you know, under 50 or something. And of course this is like 105. And I mean, for all intents and purposes, you could argue that while this gold is much more textured in the Isamaya palette, you can still achieve, I mean, they're not the same. They're obviously not the same, but you can still achieve some really pretty kind of gold tones out of that NARS palette. I just think that, like, from a practicality standpoint, the reasons that I have been reaching for the Isamaya palette, especially as difficult as the purple and the blue have made my life since I've been trying to use them, I would far rather be looking down the barrel of 16 shades of NARS than just kind of trying to cobble together something out of this. It is kind of limiting in that respect. So the final one, and the one that came to mind again, like while I was filming that video, which is like on the other end of the wildness spectrum, right? We're taking the tameness of that, the neutrals and the browns and everything, and finding them in a NARS palette, unsurprisingly, but you know, equally lovely formulas. And then we go to the other end of the spectrum and the, you know, the wildness and the like wanting to do something really different and artistic. And we have Utopian Dream. So Utopian Dream is far more exciting than this palette, but I'm gonna go ahead and swatch the similar shades, and you'll quickly see what I mean. All right, so there we have some of the star shades, right, from the Utopian Dream palette. These are not going to be identical, but the Utopian Dream shades that are the stars, right, are these really awesome, like, textured shades, the special shades. And so it goes without saying that I like using those more than I like some of the textures in the Isamaya palette. So starting with that kind of purple, I am so much more likely to use this purple than this purple. I mean, granted, they're completely different animals, but they are both designed to be like sheer, you know, and like toppers. And y'all saw me in my recent, like, will I buy it or whatever, you know, my tepid takes video. This is what I had as my topper, but it read as this beautiful kind of like multi-dimensional kind of gray because of what I put underneath it, you know? So I feel like it's got more versatility and it's prettier than this purple. Then we have that gold, which, you know, we have a very similar one from Isamaya. Still not quite as spangly, but it is more neutral. The Pat McGrath one, it does make it look a lot more orange. Then we have Bedroom Eyes Brown. You know, Mama Pat's is a little bit more red, but I find that they both do the trick. The same goes for that matte brown. It's a little bit more reddy purpley than the one from Isamaya. Then we have this kind of, in here, it's not a special shade, but you know, you could also combine it with this gorgeous one that we'll look at in a second, but it's this really, really pretty kind of glitter foil pink. That reminds me of that one, which is, you know, easily the star of the show in the Isamaya palette. And then we do have that absolutely insane, you know, other special shade. I'm not sure if I would compare it to the pink or the White Shift Gold. The pink probably, but you know, I put both next to each other. You can really hardly tell the difference. That's the other thing that I found about the Isamaya palette was like, look at this. You've got this one right here, and then you've got this gold right here. They're the same color. That white doesn't stay white. They're basically the same color. Like the white shifts a little bit more green gold, but they're both just, they're just golds. They're just gold flips. One looks gold in the pan and one looks white in the pan, but like there's a little tiny bit more nuance to the white, but on the eyes, I swear to God, they look exactly the same. I don't know, I found that to be kind of like oversight. So yeah, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's half of her palette easily, that can be accomplished or honestly outdone. I have glitter all over my pants by the Utopian Dream palette. And you know, Pat McGrath's palettes go on sale all the time. You do not have to pay $125 for them. I did right when this came out. You know what? I think it was on sale right when it came out. I still think that I bought this on sale. And so I mean, if this entices you because of the magpie of it all, I really invite you to consider, especially if you already have this, you don't need this, okay? They are so similar that like, you just, I would go Mama Pat all day long. I think the Utopian Dream palette is one of the most exciting palettes I've ever used. So like, you see what I have going on. I literally have the most exciting shade in her entire palette. The Isamaya palette just smacked all over my eyelids right now. I'm gonna show you something. It pales in comparison to what just the tiniest bit of those special shades can do. Okay? It's just not even close. And this has nothing to do with the recent revelations of Isamaya's life, you know? I would have said that regardless, okay? Because the proof is right there. I don't even have to say anything. It's just better. I completely neglected to mention the fact that like Pat McGrath is in not entirely tepid water herself after the Stickergate, right, of the Star Wars palette being released that was a full price version of a deeply reduced palette where they essentially were just trying to liquidate overstock of stuff that wasn't selling by putting a Star Wars sticker on it. And then the creator, Monica Bell Makeup on Instagram, put it on blast in a very equanimous way. Here are the facts, I want, you know, buyer beware kind of thing. And Pat McGrath you know, team, I don't think it's Pat McGrath herself, but Pat McGrath's team blocked her on Instagram, which is just like really just bad form. But I also don't really, I don't want to sit here and just, you know, go blow for blow on it, but like, I don't think those two things are the same. I just want to say that I don't think those two things are the same. They're both bad, but they're not the same thing. Because I understand that there are people who are going for texture and there are people who are going for nuance, but like, I don't think you would buy the Wild Star palette because you're going for nuance. You know, you're going for impact, you're going for creativity, and Utopian Dream gets there. It gets there so much better, so much easier, and it's just already a much more composed look on my eyes. It looks so much less muddy, so much less confused, and it just was, it's so much more fun. I think that that's what's like a really, really important thing to remember, is putting it in the context of like your everyday use of your makeup. Like what's gonna be more fun for you? Even just the idea of opening this up and putting my finger in a round pan is more fun than trying to think in this wheel. Do with that what you will. But I also do want to mention, completely outside of the Isamaya palette, Utopian Dream also has this color in it, which is like one of my favorite eyeshadows I've ever used. It's just this perfect silky oil slick kind of color. And for the first like 6 months of owning this palette, it was the only thing that I want. Like, I could not get away from it. I would just start doing my eye look and I was like, you know what, I think I'm gonna use that one because it's really pretty. And then I'd be like, I did this last time and the time before that, you know what I mean? And it was just that one that like always seemed like a good idea that I was having for the first time. Because it looks awesome. It looks awesome on skin. It's really, really good. It's sexy, but it's kind of weird. Yeah, so I think that that's how I would sum up the Utopian Dream palette. It's fun, sexy, and weird, and I like that. And I think that that's kind of what she was going for with this, but she went too far in the campy direction and just kind of didn't nail it down on every single texture. And I think especially for the price that she's charging for these things, and especially with the mindset of like, no, we didn't come here to do subtlety. Pat McGrath already did it, and she did it better. So to recap, no on the Makeup by Mario and no on the Isamaya. I will list all of the alternatives down below, but I also invite you to comment any alternatives that you really like in your routine, especially if we have different skin types, down in the comments. Please, please, please. I really encourage those kinds of conversations. And I hope that this was helpful for y'all. Let me know if this, I mean, this kind of happened by accident, but let me know if this kind of format is helpful, where it's like, you know, we have kind of the second impressions video where you get to see me using it and experiencing it in real time and, you know, turning a look. And then we come back around to final thoughts in a more comparison oriented way. So it's like we're almost in two different mindsets, right? Because I think the comparisons are super important. That's why I have such a huge collection, but it can get pretty tedious if you came to the video and are watching me put it on and then we start swatching. I mean, it's just like, it's tedious to edit. It's probably tedious to watch. So anyway, if you did enjoy this, please do give it a thumbs up. It really, really helps me out. I will throw up a video right here for y'all that I think that you're going to enjoy if you liked this one. If you made it all the way to the end and you are not already subscribed, you probably should. You're gonna keep watching anyway. And I want y'all to know that I love you, and I will hopefully see you in the next one. Bye.